Greetings, I'm Dr. Robert Benson, and it's been said by Chris Rock that the black man is an endangered species. Well, is it? Today, I'm going to talk to you about the black man in survival mode, and I'm going to share some tools and information needed for survival. A quick overview of what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to state the problem. I'm going to show you some statistical data, and I'm going to talk about something called mentoring. And then from there, I'm going to share some negative influences, and I'm going to try and discuss those influences and show how they can cause problems with the police if we need to be, and then talk a little bit more about the police, summarize and conclude, and then we'll have some more information later on. First, let's just talk about the problem. The black man is in survival mode simply because there's just so many trends that are out there that indicate that the African-American male is failing or losing from behind. Basically, 53% of black men in the ages of 24 to 25, 34 unemployed. And violence is like 1,172 black children have died from gunfire, and that was back in 2003. Black men actually have a 32% chance of going to prison, and only 45% of black men graduate from high school. And the graduation rates are kind of, correlated with that between 50 and 59%. But the thing that's glaring on this slide really is that 82% of black men actually were killed by their own black men, and that was in 2012. In 2013, that number actually went up to 83%. Some other things that are very, very interesting about this problem is that if you'll see here in the data in the slides, is that black guys hover around the same numbers over and over again as far as being subject to gun violence and things like that, and most of it is self-inflicted. Now, there's some other things we can add to these numbers that skew them, of course, is the pandemic that we just dealt with recently. The implications of that basically is that there wasn't a lot going on. So a lot of complacency set in those types of things. It caused government shutdown. And we still really are in a recovery, if you will, as far as COVID is concerned. Now, you would think that some of the numbers would be skewed because of that, but they really aren't. And essentially, because of COVID, we are dealing with an absolutely new norm, and crime has been exacerbated for all things for the most part. But let me share a little personal story with you real quick is that for years, the one thing I really wanted to be was a professional basketball player. But the fact of the matter is that I wasn't a basketball player. Someone talked to me and they were very, very brutally honest with me about I wasn't a basketball player. That person I talked to was a mentor. And mentoring is what we need more of. Essentially, a mentor is someone who teaches or often guides a younger person. They aren't in control, really, of who sees them as a mentor. We really aren't. And to be a mentor, you really just have to live and lead by example. And that's what our young men right now need. And to kind of quote an organization I was a part of some years ago, mentoring is about every man get a man, recruit, reclaim, and retain. And that's basically pulling the coat of a young person and getting them to understand things. A little bit more about mentoring is about communication and relationships. And there's not any real special training involved with being a mentor. You just have to have a desire to lead and influence. You have to, share your experiences, teach proper etiquette to our young people so they understand things more. Lead by example, as I mentioned before. And one thing you should probably know is that you're probably a mentor right now and don't even know it. Someone is looking at you as an example of either what to do or what not to do. Mentoring is important because it can avoid us from getting into negative things like gangs and gangs. They tend to have a certain stigma attached to them in the way people appear and their attitude. Hate groups. You just hate people and don't like things, and there's no real reason for your mentality, if you will. And negative peer pressure is also associated with that. And these are the kind of things that mentoring can keep a young person from heading down that path. And they also lead to negative interactions and negative activities. Some of those things, and the ones that are probably the most prevalent right now, are drugs, drug addiction, which leads to trafficking. And there's an entirely different set of rules when you're dealing with drugs. There's street rules, and more often than not, when a person violates those rules, it violates in death or violence. It's a risk of loss of life, and there's community destruction, which in fact leads me into the next thing I want to talk to you about. I mentioned earlier that Chris Rock had mentioned something about the black man being an endangered species. And what he said basically was, well, That isn't true because endangered species are protected by the government. The black man is not protected by the government. Who is a better representative of the government than the police? There's obvious disparity in the mindset and tensions between African American and the general public about police. Police shootings in African American communities are documented, and they're constantly a source of social and political unrest in many communities. And basically, you have to, when you're dealing with police, it's something that I share with young people all the time. It's what I refer to as the 3 C's. The 3 C's, which are basically communicate, cooperate, and clear. Basically, you have to communicate with police, you have to cooperate with them, and that way you can clear yourself of the situation. And something that I always did was when I was involved with a police situation, I put both my hands out the window so they could see me. But the bottom line is you have to see yourself on the other side of the situation with police. But police aren't all bad. They aren't all negative. As a matter of fact, as I indicated earlier, the violence and most of the violence that we deal with in our communities really isn't about the police. It's about them responding. But there's some good things going on about the police. There are actually some special steps right now being taken for police to interact more with African Americans. Lincoln University, which is an HBCU in Missouri, has a law enforcement certification and training program that is specifically designed to get African Americans to become police officers. Things that they're teaching are de-escalation techniques, community involvement, which is huge, and they also are proposing a liability insurance program for police officers, which would be great because in that case, anytime a police officer acts in an inappropriate way, they'll have to pay for it because they have some kind of insurance that covers those situations. But this is a program brought on by a guy by the name of Gary Hill. He's the chief of police at Lincoln University in Missouri. Great program. So we all understand that there are, we're in survival mode basically, but there are positive examples of police interaction. Police shootings don't only occur in minority neighborhoods, okay? And appropriate mentoring programs, as I just mentioned before, can prevent negative interactions. So basically, you need to get out there, talk about those 3 C's I talked about: communicate, cooperate, and clear, okay? The survival of the black man is a team effort. And on that, the police is definitely a part of. Let's stop blaming them for our problems and let's make them a positive part of that interaction. So what have I talked to you about today? I kind of talked about the problem. I shared a lot of statistics with you about African-American violence, and a lot of it is intramural, if you will. We're killing ourselves, and it's something that we absolutely have to stop doing. If we do that, the police will need to get involved with us. I talked about mentoring. Mentoring is huge. It's because you have to talk to people. You have to get in there. You have to find out what they're doing, and you can't do it. This can't be done in a vacuum. We have to work together to protect our youth. Okay? Negative influences, gangs, drugs, being involved with the wrong people. Those are things that we can avoid. And I talked about the police. Well, they can be dang negative at times, but for the most part, they're there to protect us. And if we don't act accordingly, then their perception of us is going to be completely different than what we intend for it to be. But let me share some sources with you real quick before I share some other things. I got this information from the urgency of now. I got it from Black Chicago, the Brookings Institute, and Lincoln University in Missouri, and of course, Bing.com. There's a lot of data that I gathered was from there. But the things that I do and the things that I've talked to you about right now, I share constantly on my podcast called The Book of Dad Radio Show. The Book of Dad Radio Show it airs anywhere you can get your podcast and on YouTube. These are the type of things that I like to share with you in that venue. So let's go back to Chris Rock. Are we an endangered species? We could be. If we don't take the necessary special steps to preserve our resource, our young men, we will be. We'll self-destruct, or the police will do it for us. Please consider these tools and information needed for the black man to survive. I'm Dr. Robert Benson, and I hope you enjoyed and understand this presentation. Thank you for your time.
Everybody's got content. Very few have something to say. This is Crossview AI Studio, where comedy, culture, faith, and fearless storytelling collide. Catch sharp, unfiltered comedy and commentary from Mike and Tasha, Plus, their upcoming newscast, breaking down real life with humor and edge. Meet Kristen Holy with Hoochie Earrings, Faith, Flaws, and Honesty with Heart. Dive into original AI audiobooks like Cracks in the Foundation and gripping audio dramas, including Tamika's Influence and Release Me. Stories about ambition, trauma, power, and freedom. New voices, new stories, no filters. Subscribe to Crossview AI Studio.
I know you are sick of being lied to. I'm here to tell you the truth. The RobCast podcast every week. We talk about what really matters: leadership, faith, relationships, mental health, veterans issues, real life, real clarity, no gossip, no noise, just honest conversations that help you think deeper and live smarter. Watch now, the RobCast podcast. Join me. Let's get grounded in truth.